This is Bill with the Civic Capacity Newsletter. I hope you are all doing well. It's Friday afternoon here in Western Ohio, and probably like most of you, you are waiting for the impending snowstorm that will be coming throughout the United States later this weekend. We are in the eye of that storm as well. My thoughts and prayers go out to those folks that live in the southern part of the United States that are going to be dealing with ice. We're not going to be having that here. We will be expecting anywhere from about 8 to 12 inches of snow, and that number keeps on creeping up. So maybe at the end of it, we'll be seeing like 10 to 15 inches of snow. Who knows? Maybe if you're in the chat, you can tell us where you are and how much snow that you're going to be expecting. We see Anita and Carol. Welcome. Glad you could join us today. What I really wanted to talk about, though, is this story that we ended up breaking. It's been a little more than a week. It might have been just a week ago. A terrible story about a 90-year-old man that was arrested in my hometown for what was a property maintenance violation at the end of the day. And if you think that sounds weird, it got even more strange the more we dug into the story. So on January 7th, um, I learned that a 90-year-old man was arrested in a grocery store parking lot in my hometown for an open warrant. There was a bench warrant served against him. And so when he drove past a flock camera, and you may be familiar with what a flock camera is, these are those cameras that have like a little solar powered um, panel on them. And what they do is, as traffic drives by, these cameras pick up license plates and they pick up information on where you drive. Well, this gentleman drove by one of those. Police were immediately flagged that there was an open warrant for him. They found the vehicle in a grocery store parking lot. All credit to the police because it does appear that they did exactly what they had to do. The officer responded. They were able to get a photograph of the individual. They found him inside the store. They kindly walked him outside of the store to his vehicle, calmly explained what would happen. And I'll get into that here in a minute. But after his surprise, he understood what was happening. He was handcuffed in front, not in the back, and he was transported at first to the county jail. The officer at that point decided that the county jail was not an appropriate place for this gentleman to be, and if you've been through our jail, you know why. It does not meet standards for any type of incarceration facility. So they took him to another incarceration facility here in the county, which was more modern and minimum security. And he was booked. Within a few hours, he was released, and all charges against him for his property maintenance violation were dropped by the judge. So, what exactly happened here? Well, as I researched this, I was able to find the original complaint that led to the bench warrant being issued. And basically, it said this gentleman at this address had a property at this address, which was in violation of the property maintenance code. And the only problem is that that address was the address where there was a property maintenance violation. There was no property maintenance violation at that address. Now, this gentleman does have another property in our town, and that did have some issues that needed to be resolved. And after working with our city clerk, we were able to finally get the right public records. But every time I asked for the records that were associated with this address, I always got a note back. These records don't exist, and I was extremely confused. Because it's like when you do a public records request, it's really upon you to ensure that that request is tight enough that the city clerk can actually fulfill that record. Um, if you make public records requests that are too vague, um, they're not going to get fulfilled. Um, we do not want city staff members or staff members of any governmental agency spending inordinate amount of time to fill a request and go on a wild goose chase. And so um, every request that I had made to to our city clerk on public record, she did exactly what she needed to do because those records for that particular address didn't exist. It wasn't until I was able to find that there was another property that this gentleman owned that did have some property maintenance issues, and I was able to get the full record of that. Now, this was a rundown property, and it needed help, and the city it was on the city's radar, um, earlier in 2005, maybe even back in 2004. But really, the first, communication wasn't until 2025 on this property. And there was some communication between the gentleman's family and a contractor with the city, on trying to get things fixed. And there were good faith efforts to have that fixed, basically between the April 2025 and June 2025 timeframe, and then things just kind of went quiet. Efforts to get more uh, information on timelines. When will things get done? What are their problems? All of these things. The trail just went quiet. And so the city felt like it didn't have many other options to get the attention of those people involved. And so it eventually filed charges back in November on this gentleman. But again, they used the wrong address. Used the wrong address in their complaint. And so one of the things that was interesting in the police report is the gentleman's like, "Well, we've got this address in which you have a problem." The guy's like, "I don't even know that anymore." And so that's what happened. It was a horrible, horrible mistake that was made um, by the city administration charging this guy with the wrong address. Um, and yes, the charges have been dismissed. I don't know if anything more has happened in terms of trying to fix up the property that has the problems on it. I hope so. From what I understand, there's been a new contractor that's on the job, and hopefully those issues are being resolved as we speak. But it's January. We're going to get a 10-inch snowstorm, so it's going to be a bit of a challenge. All that to say is the city is beginning to look at some different avenues to help prevent things like this happening in the future. Should this have been a criminal offense? I Hard to say. I mean, it has happened like that in the past, but they're now looking at more of a civil option, which is probably a lot easier and a lot cleaner to handle with these things. Another issue that has come up is, how do we ensure that address records and records are correct? Um, I don't know why the city staffer put down the wrong address in his criminal complaint about where this problem property was. I took a look at other complaints that this individual's filed. He seemed to get it correct on every other one. This one, for some reason, maybe he was, I don't know, maybe he was just asleep at the switch. And people make mistakes. I mean, I'm not going to harp on him too much. These things happen. Heaven knows I've made mistakes on paperwork before. But I think when we take a look at this as a criminal case, you've got to make that standard extremely high, and you've got to make things very, very tight to ensure that you don't run into this situation before. There was a long time ago, I actually did property maintenance inspections for the city of Troy, and I was the guy that would file those charges. And I remember when I would go to the county courthouse and I would talk to the municipal prosecutor about filing charges, the prosecutor was very clear. He's like, I want you to look at this before the arraignment date and let me know if something has changed. Because the last thing I want to do is look like an idiot in front of the judge uh, when the defendant comes in and says, "Judge, there's no problem here." So you really have to make sure that those lines of communication are very open between, the person making the complaint and the prosecutor that's prosecuting it. And the whole trick to property maintenance, more than anything, is communication. Communicating with not only the prosecutor, but also communicating with those that you have the problem with. Um, Nothing upsets a resident more than getting a certified letter addressed to them for an issue that they had no idea existed. And so, one of the things that I would try to do, go knock on the door, make a phone call, send a non-threatening letter, do things to ensure that that level of communication was there between myself representing the city and that individual, which we had a little bit of an issue with. Now, at the end of the day, I could do everything I could to find you. And if you would not respond to my phone calls or my letters, or you wouldn't open the door when I answered it, you left me no choice to file charges. And the funny thing is, when these charges were filed, occasionally, the guy would show up and say, "Yeah," and the judge would, always, you know, um, not dismiss the charges, but find him guilty and make him pay a $25 fine. You know, Paying a $25 fine does not fix a roof, and that's one of the things that property maintenance through criminal avenues just doesn't always work. Because in the eyes of the court, the problem's been solved. You've paid your fine, and then for me doing the property maintenance, well, all you really did, you set the clock back to zero. So now I gotta wait to see if I can find, an opportunity to talk to the person to get their problem fixed, and then I gotta go. And do I have to file charges again? And it starts that process over. That's already a long process, and so it gets very, very challenging to do that. There's other questions that need to be raised as well. The flock cameras. Should you be popping somebody with a flock camera that has a misdemeanor? Um, that's still kind of a difficult conversation to have that hasn't happened yet. Um, talk to anybody in law enforcement. The flock cameras do help. People stealing things from retail stores. We can find them. We can get them. We can apprehend them. Um, it's a balance, and in this case, I think the balance went a little too far. Um, But again, if there's a warrant out for your arrest and the cop knows it, the cop is under an obligation to uh, to fulfill that warrant and to bring that person to justice. And so, the worst part about this whole situation that occurred was that there was a whole bunch of social media chatter from certain individuals that just took a field day to try to prove that what I said was wrong. When at the end of the day, none of the facts that I presented were debated for their factualness. Um, I was accused of saying that the city or the county or somebody else did wrong when that certainly was not the case. In fact, if you read my first story, I made it pretty clear. I think everybody who was involved with this probably did exactly what they needed to do. I need to revise and extend that remark because if you're the property maintenance inspector, you need to make sure you have the right address on the complaint. So who knows what will happen there? Hopefully those individuals will be held accountable. I see a question about that. What that accountability looks like, well, that's up to that's up to those people within that organization. That's not up to me. And so yeah, that was kind of the big story of the week. What are we going to be talking about in civic capacity here on out? Well, today we talked about the Parks and Recreation meeting that happened between the Recreation Board and the Park Board this week here in Troy. Um, there's some movement on trying to get the master plan approved and what those recommendations will look like to City Council on how to make some more parks and recreations enhancements here in the community. City of Piqua has some challenges that they're trying to deal with. Most notably, they need to find a new fourth ward commissioner. Nobody ran for the spot in the last election cycle. They took applications. Four people stepped forward, and the four other commissioners said, well, none of these people are ringing our bell. So it's back to the drawing board there on trying to find an individual to serve there in the fourth ward. If they don't, I guess there has to be a special municipal election. Those can be extremely costly, and so we'll have to see how that plays out as well. And so that's what's happening in the world here in Miami County, Ohio. There's 16 of us. Thank you so much for being here today, and I really appreciate it. It's about 2:50 local time, and I don't know if folks have any questions that they want to put into the chat. I'll be happy to answer them, but just wanted to kind of basically recreate that story of why that 90-year-old man got arrested for a property maintenance violation, and it's a fascinating story. And honestly, I'm very proud of helping to tell that story. Um, because I think any local government wants to prevent that from happening in the future. And the fact that that story was told, the fact that that story was told in a fair and consistent manner that respected everybody involved is something I'm very proud of. Um, one of the things that that I don't one of the things that upsets me about some of the critics of the work I'm doing is they think I'm just out to make other people look bad. I've written over 859 separate editions of the Civic Capacity newsletter. And I would challenge anyone to find where I've taken a gratuitous cheap shot towards anybody. I've been critical of certain individuals, absolutely, but I've been critical of their actions that they've taken and what those actions mean for our community. There's a huge difference between uh, pointing out decisions that I believe are not in the best interest of the community and trying to offer a different perspective than that than a simple a simple attitude of unwarranted civic boosterism. Um, Civic boosterism is fine when it's earned and when we can point to positive things that are happening in which everybody has played a role in the success of the community. Civic boosterism is not warranted when it's simply an antidote to those things that are an antidote to those questions that we don't want to answer. If there are questions that we don't want to answer as a community, we don't simply wave the flag and say, "Hey, look how good we are." No, we need to wrestle with those questions, and we need to figure out the best way forward for our community. And that's what I'm trying to do at Civic Capacity. I'm trying to inform and engage and involve our residents into deep conversations about their community, because when you know more about your community, you have more invested in it. And with that, you are able to make decisions for yourself. And sometimes I often wonder if our elected officials on a local level and even our appointed officials on a local level really want us to have the ability to think for ourselves. I think a lot of them think that, we've elected these people, so they're the only ones that should think deeply about these issues, and then we'll give them the opportunity to make those decisions. Now, yes, they are empowered to make those decisions that come in front of them, but we gave them the vote to do that. We didn't give them our brains. We're still allowed to think deeply and think critically about the actions that local government takes in our own community. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. 21 minutes. Thank you for all being here today. If you've not subscribed to the Civic Capacity newsletter, please do. I think you will enjoy it, especially if civic issues, something that you're interested in doing or learning about. Again, big weekend for snow and ice and a whole bunch of nasty weather. I hope all of you take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of your communities. Uh, would be a good weekend to just kind of hunker in, but make sure you call somebody, a loved one, a relative, or a friend to make sure they're doing okay as well, especially if you live in places like South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. Those ice storms just look absolutely ferocious. And power outages and loss of heat and things of that, especially with the cold air that's coming in, that just unimaginable. But take care. Again, thanks for joining us. I hope to catch you again on one of these live streams here on Substack. Take care, everybody.